Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you so kindly for joining us. Welcome to Green Apple Books on the Park. My name is Car Johnson and I'm the event coordinator for Green Apple. And tonight I'm very happy to welcome you to our event with Alissa Lee. We are celebrating her debut novel, With Friends Like These. Let's give one more hand for Alissa. Excellent. She is joined tonight by San Francisco City librarian Michael Lambert. Let's get a hand. Thank you all so kindly for joining us. Thank you for joining us here, packing the house on a Wednesday when it's so dark outside. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. You could truly be anywhere, and that you're with us is very special. And obviously, we have a lot of friends in the house, which is great, and we appreciate it. So thank you for not only being good friends, but good literary citizens as well. We appreciate that. Thank you for joining us here in person and also online. Hello, online audience. I'm waving to a camera if you can't see what I'm waving to. We open each of our events here at Green Apple with a land acknowledgement, and as such, I would like to let you know that we are operating on unceded Ramaytush Ohlone land. We think that acknowledgement requires action, and so we encourage you to donate either your time or monetary means to an Indigenous organization each time you hear a land acknowledgement. We have details about the Ramaytush Ohlone Land Trust at the back desk if you are interested in how to participate in this project of rematriation. That is but one way to do so, and that's usually where we direct people. I have very brief business before I let these two take over. Now is a good time to silence your cell phones if you have not already. Please don't take a call in the middle of the event, at least not while you're sitting here. You can certainly step out and go about your business, but please don't sit in the audience and take a call. Photo taking, I have been told, is okay. Please do take photos, but only good photos, no bad photos. You're not allowed to take bad photos that are out there, so keep that in mind. And definitely don't tag them in bad photos, my goodness. Please do check out our full event calendar online at greenapplebooks.com. We have a really great season ahead of us. So I can't believe it's kind of coming to like the end of the year. But yeah, we're wrapping up our 2025 calendar with an exceptional event this evening and a couple more on the way as well that you might enjoy too. Please do, if you have not already, and I know some of you have, many of you have, please do buy books. Please do buy books from us if you are able. If you've been here before, you have certainly heard me say that when you buy books from us, not only do you support us as an independent bookstore, you support the writers who put so much work into making these books, and then you get to have a book, which might be the best part. So if you are able, we always appreciate it. Thank you so kindly. And Alissa will sign them. Yeah, she's gonna sign them. So Alissa will sign them after the event too. So then you have something extra special. Consider it. Think about it. To that end, I always forget to make note of it, so I have a handwritten note here to remind me. I will be writing your names in the signing line on a little post-it, and because we have so many friends in the audience, please indulge me and let me write your name on a post-it, and don't say, Alissa knows me, it's okay, please just let me write it down. So she doesn't have to say, I don't have my glasses, I can't see, I don't know. I know this person quite well, but I cannot for the life of me remember the alphabet. Don't put her in that position. Thank you so much. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the two folks who are joining us tonight. First, Michael Lambert is the city librarian for the city and county of San Francisco. During his tenure, the San Francisco Public Library was named the National Library of the Year by Library Journal.
All right.
Well done. Michael Lambert has championed increased and equitable access to libraries through expanded hours and a fine-free library system. This is why I love the public library. He is the first Asian American to lead the SFPL. Let's give one more hand for Michael Lambert. And last but most certainly not least, Alissa Lee is a writer and lawyer. A graduate of Harvard College and Harvard Law School, she grew up in New Jersey and now lives in the San Francisco Bay Area. Her debut novel, With Friends Like These, is out now and is the reason we are here tonight. Let's give one more hand for Alissa.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction.
Wow, look at this crowd. It is so wonderful to be here in community with all of you and at Green Apple Books at the park. We love our independent bookstores and we love Green Apple Books. Well, you all are in for a real treat this evening as we engage with our dear friend Alissa Lee about her debut novel, With Friends Like These. And mark my words, for those of you who do not know Alissa, we're all going to look back and say, I knew her when. This book is going to blow up. Congratulations. How many of you know Alissa? All right. Well, for Alissa's newest fans, I'm going to share a little bit about her. She is the author of With Friends Like These, Simon & Schuster Press. She was previously Associate General Counsel, head of the Asia Pacific and Latin America legal teams, and Chief Operating Officer, legal at Google, and a graduate of Harvard College and Harvard Law School. She is also a board member for the Friends and Foundation of the San Francisco Public Library. Fiercely proud of her New Jersey roots, she has a beautiful family based here in the city by the bay. Congratulations again, Alissa. Let's get right to it. So to begin with, I'd like to start with your journey as a writer. So a lot of us feel like we have a book inside of us. I know I feel that way, but how many of us really act on that, you know? So tell me about your journey as a writer, even before this book came into being. Was writing something that you always wanted to do?
Thanks so much, Michael. It's such a treat to be here, and it's such a treat to see all of you in the audience. It means so much to me. And thank you to Carr and to the Green Apple team for hosting us. I'm really grateful. I've sat so many times in the seat where you guys are looking up at these authors, and to be on the other side of it is truly a dream come true. And such a treat to get to do this with you, Michael. It means so much. I think that, it's been a long journey, as many of you know intimately from me talking about this book for ages. It's been a journey, but it's been such an educational one. I think, as you have heard, I was a lawyer, and coming out of that job, or sort of toward the tail end of that job, I think I realized that I was really missing something. I think that the intensity and the rigidity of a legal practice, particularly the one that I was in, just made me crave the creative. And so I basically just found myself really just trying to figure out ways to explore this other side of me that had felt very shut down. So I think some of you know that I started writing when I was at my last job, and I actually completed an entirely different book. I don't know if I told you that, Michael. It was absolutely awful. And so maybe this is a good time for a public apology, because I know some of you in the room either read it or you had to suffer through me talking about it, and you will never get that time back. And I'm looking at some of you in the front row, some of the yes group, probably real. And so, but at the same time I was learning, and I think I came up in a mentality where I just was like, if I just thug it out and I just, put my head down and get better and work on my craft, like things will happen. And then when the pandemic hit, I think like many of us, we were really hungry for community. And it was really, it's sort of in retrospect, it seems really simple and really almost like ridiculous. But I think it was a really light bulb moment for me, because I really hadn't taken the time to invest in a writing community. And so I made a promise to myself, I'm going to double down. I'm going to be, say yes to everything. And at one point, I think I found myself in 3 different writers groups, and I was in workshops and just, all over the place. But I think what I learned from that was that, writing is such a solitary thing, and it is almost crazy making, because you are devoting yourself to being alone, for hours on end with people that are completely fabricated in your weird imagination. And so, but I think what really makes it golden for me, and what makes it really meaningful, is being part of this larger community of writers, of people who are incredibly generous, and finding your people really makes all the difference. It makes it possible. It makes your imagination stronger. It makes your sort of writing muscles just that much better. And so that was when things really started hitting. And it was through a chain of serendipitous events, because I met a writer friend who then put me in touch with a conference that wasn't on my radar. that I wound up meeting my agent. So I'll pause there. So that's when things started to happen, but it did take a long time.
Well, thank you for sharing those insights. You've obviously had a prolific career with a background in law, and it's hard not to think of a number of novelists in recent years who have had the same background. So how do you think this has influenced your development as a writer? And is there something going on in the legal profession? Are you all secretly aspiring novelists?
Well, secretly disgruntled, right? It's a great question, and actually, I do talk about it a lot with other writer friends who are former lawyers, and I think there's actually a good reason for that. I think when we just talked about how the rigidity of law is such a counterbalance to the creative process, and I think one of the things that really took me a long time was figuring out how to come out of a legal job and actually reconnect with the things, and to reconnect with some of the emotions that I had really suppressed. I think I came up at a time when in the workplace, I think particularly as a woman, as a person of color, you really were rewarded for being very clinical, very execution focused, and the less you could be emotional in any setting. There's that whole negative stereotype about the historical female in the workplace, which is really it was on my mind a lot, and I did not want to play into that. But I had to spend a lot of time reconnecting, the head and the heart. But I think the other big reason that it comes to me a lot now is that I think lawyers are really good about asking what if. We're trained to look at all of these corner cases, to look at the cases that break the rule, and I think that's where good stories lie. So,
thank you. All right, let's transition to the book. Full disclosure, personally, I'm more of a nonfiction buff, but I do read fiction on occasion, particularly when it's good. And I really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed the intrigue, the characters, the suspense, the plot, and it is a real page turner. So for the folks who have not read the book yet, can you briefly summarize the book and the plot?
Sure, Michael. Yeah, it's the story of 5 close friends who were friends. They've been friends since college. They're now in their early 40s, and they've been playing a secret game for decades. And so when they realize that there's a lot of money on the table, a big pot to be won for the winner of the last game, deadly consequences ensue. But it's really a book about the secrets that we keep, even from our closest friends, and the lies that we tell ourselves, and even those closest to us. And it's also about a story about complex long-term friendships, and what we're willing to sacrifice for people that matter most to us.
Thank you. Well, the women in this book are all at least externally successful. Bea is a major New York City political figure. Allie is a high-level executive at American Express and has a beautiful, happy family. Sarah is at a crossroads but has options, etc. But everyone's lives are more complex than they appear. And your main character, Sarah, certainly discovers this over the course of the book. So this feels authentic to our own lives. It's easy to be on social media and to think all of our friends are living better lives than we are. So what has writing this book taught you about the nature of friendship, and how our friendships these days are mediated by technology and external perception?
Yeah, it's such a good question, Michael. I started writing this book when I was coming out of this last job and really feeling disconnected from people. I had my work friends, and then I had friends that I knew from school and from parenting and different parts of my life, but I didn't really know where I fit in. And it really started me thinking about what does it take to be a friend? How do we learn how to be a good friend? And I realized in my earlier part of my life that I didn't really know, and I didn't know how to be intentional about investing in people and to bring those friendships along through life. And I think now that I'm older, the question is, what does it take to actually build those complex long-term friendships? I'm still very close with my college friends, but it's almost, and sometimes I feel like it's despite me. They've seen so many versions of myself, and still they stick by me, which is really kind of amazing. But I think that what I've learned so much about friendship, I think, in the course of writing this, because I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. And I think one of the inspirations was a book that I absolutely love called A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, which is such a, I don't recommend it lightly because it's a really challenging book, and it's kind of dark, but it's about 4 men who are coming up in the world. They start as very young men out of college, and they wind up becoming very successful in their careers. And but the main character, the author intentionally talks about how she wanted to write about a character who doesn't get better. So it does feel like he can't catch a break through this entire story, and he's knocking his head against the wall a lot because he's dealing with a lot of childhood trauma and abuse. But the entire time I remember thinking, and the book now is about 10 years old. I think it's celebrating its 10-year release now. And I remember thinking, what is wrong with these people? Why can't they be the kind of friends to be, that he needs? And it really sparked it sort of clicked then. And it really hit home with me because I was like, there are definitely cases where I've not been that person in someone else's life, knowingly and unknowingly. But to see it laid out on the page, it seemed so clear to me that there were circumstances where involuntarily people fell away from his life, but there were also lots of opportunities when people could have stepped up and really helped him in a way that they just weren't able to for other reasons. And so I think after reading that book and then working on this manuscript, it all came together, and I really wanted to think about how friendships shift and change as we get older, and then also like how they're mediated by perception. Again, I think I came up with time. It was not intentionally about social media, although I think that's exacerbated everything. But it was a lot of what I was thinking about was, especially for women, the distance that was growing between our public selves and our private selves. My college roommates and I have a joke now, and we can joke about it now, but we're absolutely horrible about asking for help. And so for years and years, I think we were all just kind of spinning and struggling and just being really, really, really challenging to say, to raise our hand and say, I'm struggling, I need you to step in and help me. And the joke was that, our partners would then call one of our roommates and say, you need to call her. So it's like a bad signal. I would get the call, or I know that I would get a call from one of my roommates and very cheery, how you doing? And I'd be like, Eric called you, didn't he? Very, very clear. So now we can joke about it, but I think it's really endemic to, the way that we came up and just thinking about that delta, and again, exacerbated by social media. And I think that, where I've come out with it is that at this point in my life, it makes me see really clearly that it makes us really afraid to take risks. And I worry about that having a daughter now who is, in 20. I see how, because we know that we perceive that there are consequences of taking risks in our friendships and our relationships. Like the public, there's, the potential for public blowback, there's the potential there's even the real effect of seeing and people online and thinking, they're all much better at friendship. They're all much better at social engagement that we all are involved in than I am. And I think that, especially because I'm an introvert, that has a real negative effect on me. And I think that there's been a couple experiences recently that have really been formative in my thinking and also to my writing career. One of the writers that I met online during the pandemic did something that really stays with me all the time. She emailed me right after this workshop was over, and it was a nice workshop. We'd all gotten really well, and she just emailed me, and she basically said, "I want to be your friend. Can we be friends?" And I was like, and we're not young anymore, so it's like, it's kind of, it was surprising, but also very bold. And I think that that's the kind of risk taking that I haven't been seeing, or I don't think we're doing as much. And so, and she's the one who actually wound up introducing me to another, to this conference where I actually met my agent. And I link all of those chains back to that simple act of saying, there's something about you that I feel like we are simpatico. Can we be friends? And so I've adopted that. And so I think a couple times recently I've met women and I was like, I really like their style. And I'll go up to them and be like, I want to be your friend.
I love that. We'll be friends. Well, I think you're doing something right, judging by this turnout and friends like these. I'm glad you reminded me of that book, A Little Life. We talked about that a little bit last week. Can you share more about the path this book has taken over the years and how it started, how it changed over time?
Yeah, it's been a journey because after coming off, the horrible book that is now not even in a drawer, it's incinerated. It was, a funny thing that we've talked about is that there was a very early version of this book that was all men. And it was interesting because the early feedback that I was getting was that people, on paper, these men are ostensibly very privileged because they go to this, fancy school. And the feedback was like, I just want to see these guys taken down really hard. I was like, you're not wrong. It's actually part of the fun. it didn't leave anywhere to go, right? And so it was clear the book was not working, and so I put it aside. And then when I came back to it, I think, I had been seeing more movies and more media portrayals of women in their 40s that were doing cool things. They were either robbing banks together or they were, just like up to no good in the best way, in a very smart way. And I was like, this could be much better as women. And so when I flipped it to that, it just opened up this space to talk about female relationships, the complexity of those, but also the compatibility or incompatibility of competition and ambition and female friendships, and then also, reinvention as we get older and like some of the difficulties of that. So yeah, there was just a lot more space to tell a different kind of story.
We both have young kids, and I look at my son, he's like 21, he'll be 22, and he's got a really tight-knit group of friends, and you were alluding to your daughter's friends right now. And I think many folks can relate to the experience of the close relationships we have in our youth and how they evolve over time and distance, and sometimes dissolving as we grow up. So what drew you to these themes, and specifically in the context of female friendships?
Yeah, I think, female friendships can be complicated. And I think what saddens me right now is I think that we need more models in pop culture and in just, we're seeing more of it, but I think when you look at some of the models that I see my daughter drawing from, it's like Real Housewives, it's girls, right? And which are not great models, to say the least. But so I think we're seeing more representation, and it is broader representation. But for me, it was really important to, to really step away from that and to explore something that is enormously complex. But I think at this point in my life, I realize I think the benefit of being older is that there is much more room to be, instead of those friendships being black and white, there is much more room to be intentional and to be really decisive about how you want to spend your time and energy and invest in people that are gonna lift you up. And so, but I think that's a lesson that I learned too late in life, or later in life, and that's something that I hope that she learns a lot that I do.
There's that cliche, your friends are the family you choose, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, without giving anything too specific away, what was your favorite scene or sequence to write in the book?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. One of the things that's, I think, hard is that I actually love revision, which is probably why this book took me 8 years. So, and most of the scenes have been revised an insane amount of times, like 30, 40, 50 times, sometimes with my agent, with my editor. But there's one scene that actually I wrote in one sitting and is not changed at all. And I won't spoil it, but it comes at the end, and it's basically these 5 friends are together. They're on a beach in Montauk, and in the scene they're college selves, and it's this very carefree kind of random night. It's one of those nights when things have gone really off the track, but you just wind up having this like special moment, and it's like unplanned and spontaneous and beautiful. But it's also looking back. It's the main character looking back as a 40-something-year-old at this time that was really golden for her. And so there's a wistfulness, but there's also a recognition that doesn't have to end. That doesn't have to be the end of the story. She can get all of those things back, and it can be, and she's learned a lot around, going through this journey, but at the same time, friendship has changed, but it also can be that golden and that special to her. So yeah, that was
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
Well, one of the immediate thoughts I had when I finished this book was, will there be a sequel? Is there going to be another generation that's going to pick up the game? Or, do you have another book in the pipeline?
I do. Actually, I do. I was lucky enough when we wound up selling the book, which was kind of a stressful process because you never know, and publishing is so strange that way. You never really know if your book's going to get picked up. There's so many amazing authors whose books don't sell, and that's just part of the process. And so when you go up submission, it's a very dicey thing because you could, I've had friends who have been on submission for months and months and even more than a year. And so when we started to go think about selling this book, my agent said, this is a really good time to get a dog, to think about home, design projects, to learn to cook, all of that this is the time to do that. So I said, all right. So we wound up selling it though. It actually went to auction, which was a very big surprise. And then we wound up selling it as a 2-book deal. So that was a really, really surprising, like, kind of stunning development for me. So I am on contract, and my next book is due very shortly. So after this, you probably, I will disappear for a little bit, but in the best possible way. It's actually really joyful for me to get back to that project. So.
Well, this is pretty amazing. I mean, Simon and Schuster Press, one of the big four. I mean, your debut novel was picked up by one of the big four publishing houses. So congratulations. That's awesome. All right, before we get into the audience Q&A, do you have any advice for aspiring writers in this audience?
Advice. I just have learned things the hard way. I see a couple of fellow writers who have been on the journey with me. So I wouldn't say it's advice, it's just things that I've learned along the way. Some of you know Corinne Jade, who's my dear writing friend in New York, and she, she's been on this journey very much. I mean, she's probably read the book as much as I have. And one of the things that she said to me when I was, as many of you know, there were many times when I was ready to quit and ready to walk away. And coming out of the pandemic actually was one of them. I was ready to go back to law and say this was, a nice detour, but maybe it's not going to work out. And so she said something to me that was really interesting. She said, sometimes when you are the closest, you feel the farthest away. And I was like, you read that in a fortune cookie. That means nothing. I was like, that is so unhelpful. Because she was already sitting on a deal and onto her third book or second book. But I realize now, in retrospect, what she was trying to say, or what she was telling me, was to keep the faith, right? Which was, I think with it, it's keep the faith with this little star. It's keep the faith, believe in yourself, believe in the process, but also find the people that are going to lift you up and are going to keep you on this journey. And also, don't be afraid to step away. I think a lot of us, in whatever profession or whatever endeavor we are, we have this clock that is, sometimes it's real, but a lot of times it's not. And writers have it in a big way. We think that we need to be a book a year kind of author, or we are just behind all the time. And it's, it can really grind you down. But I think that, and we're so hesitant to step away from the work because we think we'll lose it, or we'll get out of the flow. But I think sometimes the best thing, the most disciplined thing, is to step away and to do something completely else, spend time with good friends, or do something entirely. And when you're ready to come back, it will still be there. So, yeah. That's, I think,
words of wisdom.
All we can do.
Trust the process. I love that. All right. Well, we have some time, so we can take some questions from the audience. Yes, over here.
So Lisa, I'm really excited to read your book. I've read the blurb. It sounds really intriguing, and I'm wondering, in this day and age, when you come up with a storyline like this, are you also thinking that it'll eventually be converted into a screenplay?
Thank you for that question. That's very kind of you. I mean, I think that the industry definitely thinks that, and I think they're picking up content that they see as marketable to the film and television industry. And the way that a lot of literary agents are now partnering with a new, not relatively new subspecialty of a book to film agent. So, for example, when I got my agents, we then partnered with agents at William Morris. So I do have William Morris agents who are now that the book is out, they're shopping it around, and to pitch it as an adaptation. But that is a very challenging process, and so you can hope that that's. I think that's where the industry is going, because the content drive is so strong there. Yeah.
Great question. Right here.
Thank you for this. I was wondering, when you pick friends who are friends that can help you with your writing, how is it different, or what different qualities are you looking for, have you looked for, than when you pick friends that are the ones that maybe just uplift you in life, generally the ones where I want to be your friend? Are there differences?
That's such a great question. Yeah, you bet. The question was, when you pick friends who are writing friends, or writing, writing friends, how are they? What qualities are you looking for that are different from friends who are just sort of general life, potentially lifelong friends? That's such an interesting question. But yeah, they are kind of different. I think that there's a level of trust that you have to have in a writing friend that is a little bit different than a personal friend, because I think when you are willing to show your work on the page, it's usually I'm looking at some of the writer friends here. It's such a piece of your soul and your heart, and it's very vulnerable. You know, that's not true for everybody. I think some people are more courageous than probably I am. But to show my work to someone who I know who I hope will treat it with respect and care and tell me how awesome it is is a different kind of quality. So I would say no. To be serious, I think that it's helpful to know their sensibility and their view of how they think about their own writing and what they're trying to achieve with the creative process, and slowly build that trust, because there is a vulnerability at the initial phase of the friendship that may be very different from someone that you know from other contexts in your life. So that's a really wonderful question.
Speaking about friends, are those ladies completely fictitious, or will they recognize themselves in the book?
Also a very good question. It's good that, the question was, are the ladies in the book, are the characters fictitious, or are they based on people? So it's good that none of my college roommates are here. And we were joking last night that I think for writers, or at least for me, I think that characters are always amalgams of people that you know or experiences you've had, and they're not fleshed out as people that come to you in that fully formed context. But you're always drawing on, personal experiences and quirks. And I feel like the jobs that I've had have put me in touch with people that have had a lot of really interesting quirks. But one thing that was really nice is when I got my events copies, I did send them to all my college roommates, and one of them emailed me the loveliest email, and then she said, I see all of us here, and like that was the biggest compliment I could ever get. So yeah.
I love that. Any other questions? Oh yeah, back there in the back.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a really great agent, and what do you look for? Because I've heard people say, go on my event, that kind of like mess you up. So what is a good agent? I haven't been able to find like a great answer on that.
Yeah. That's actually a good follow-up to your question, because I actually think the qualities of a good agent are the same that you would look for in a good friend. First and foremost, for me, it's integrity, it's intelligence, it's just a sense of values and a sense of that they want to invest in you as a person, which is and see you through the good times and the bad times, and that tracks really well with long-term friendships. But I think that the agenting process is so unique and so hard because a lot of us spend a lot of time in what we call the query trenches, which is not a pretty place to be. So you're often sending out cold emails, and you may or may not get a response. So it's hard, and I think my biggest learning from the querying process is that I was actually not that successful on the querying side. The cold emailing did not work for me. So what really took for me was really engaging in a community and getting to know people who then put me in touch with their agents or people that they knew or could recommend my work to people. And it became more of a viral thing through actual relationships rather than the query trenches. So I would say, look for, but don't deviate from what you would look for in someone that you want to spend time with and that you want to be, you want to build a good relationship with long term.
Michael.
Hi. Love the book so much. You are playing around with so many genre conventions here. It's like a little suspense, a little mystery, but it reads in such a stunningly literary way. How did you approach crafting a book like that and finding a path forward with between those two worlds?
Just to be clear, Michael's not a plant. I did not pay you to be here. Thank you.
Sorry.
We know each other, but I did not pay you for that's not a paid endorsement. That's such a nice, beautiful question. Thank you, Michael. Yes. Well, that's a hard question to repeat. So.
It was about blending genres, but having a very strong literary style of writing is, I guess, the essence of that. I mean, he said it much more beautifully than I did, but take a step.
For me, the goal of and what I love to read is really, I really try to read across genres and across the spectrum. But I think for me, in what I'm really drawn to in terms of writer is that sweet spot between literary fiction and suspense and thrillerish writing. Because I think it has the plot engine, but it also has characters and themes that hopefully will stay with you long after you've read the book. So that's, for me, what I was aiming for. And so as a result of that, I think I was trying to pull in both directions. Because I do find that dichotomy between genre and literary a false one, right? I mean, we're just talking about great stories and great storytelling, regardless of where what kind of influences you draw from. So, but I appreciate the question, Michael. Thank you.
Other questions right here, front row?
In your movie adaptation, besides myself,
Yeah.
who would you envision as these five?
Definitely
Oh,
gonna be
that's
you.
fun.
You're gonna be the main character. We agreed on that.
Do you have like any oh yeah, I need to have Lucy Liu this person.
I do love Lucy Lee. Maggie Q, Olivia Munn.
Yes.
This thing, it was really important to me to have a diverse cast. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there to cast. And also, women that are not 20-something or 30-something. So I think if I also, actually, no, there definitely is a role for Aquafina. So I think, if you know anyone, let me know. Put me in touch. No, I think it could be fun. We'll have to talk more. But there's definitely a role for you.
So that was the cast for the Apple TV or Netflix adaptation. Right here.
I was struck by what you said about the industry now when they're looking at potential books to publish or already looking at, is this going to be a film? And I was wondering whether you had to push back at all on an editor or an agent pushing you in a certain direction to make it more, I don't want to say palatable, but sellable in that area as well? Or?
That's a good question. I personally didn't, because I think that one of the benefits of having a book go to auction is you get to interview multiple publishers. And so you really get a sense of what they're coming to your book with in terms of their vision and how they want to market it. And you get to ask all those questions in advance, which is a huge luxury that I understand how lucky I was to have that. So I didn't feel that way. And I think that because I worked for a long time with my agents, and then because I got to really understand what my publisher was looking for, we worked really well together in terms of building something that I think that we were really aligned with. But I think it's not an unreasonable thing to think about in terms of book sales are good, but it's a hard market and people are reading less than they were. And there's an enormous pressure, I think, on publishing houses to really be selling as much as they can, and as a result, the commercial books are what are going to be selling more aggressively. So it's a good question.
People may be reading less, but not in San Francisco. We love to read in this town. Other questions? Right here.
Yeah. Can you talk about how you thought about the structural bones of the book, and whether you started writing kind of from the beginning, or if you had key parts that you knew you wanted to get figured out before you started with the storytelling?
Yeah, of course. Not surprisingly to anyone that knows me, I am an outliner, and I was the kid who had their notes highlighted in 6 different colors. So I do outline actually pretty a little less thoroughly than I used to, but I do have a sense of where the book is going. But I think what I've learned recently is that there is this sort of thing that writers say, is that you have to leave room to let yourself be surprised. And so now for book 2, what I've done is I've outlined everything except for the ending, which in some ways is counterintuitive because everything needs to hang on an ending, particularly if you're writing something that is not a meandering, that has actually a big expected ending. But as a result of, I think I understand the structure so much better now than I did when I started. So I feel very comfortable with leaving that room for surprising myself and hopefully surprising my readers too. But it's a process of and where other writers can be really helpful, because for example, with my writer friends, my writing group, we will exchange outlines. We'll exchange what we call beat sheets for anyone in the entertainment industry. There's a particular format for that. We'll exchange like 2-page synopses, and that's enormously helpful because you can see through people's eyes where the holes are and where things aren't really hanging together before you start in writing a 400-page manuscript. So yeah.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. Right here.
I recently was listening to a podcast. I can't remember the famous author, but he said that he works on perfecting each paragraph, and then he moves on and he doesn't go back to revisit. And some people go through and write the fastest draft and then they go and revise. Can you talk a little bit about just the craft and your approach to your final version?
Sure. I definitely don't do the first because this book would have taken me 16 years. So but I know these, like in looking at book 2, because I do have a timeline, my goal is to do 2,000 words a day, and so, but not to edit, and so to just let myself get in that flow state and just produce. It's the stereotypical thing that Anna Lamott says in her Bird by Bird. The shitty first drafts are really important and really helpful because as I said, I love revising actually, and for me that's like a pleasurable part of the process. So having sort of a messy, sprawling thing is not, that doesn't fill in with fear, which, although I think it does for other writers, but I know that once I have the clay on the table, like I can shape it into something, but I can't do anything if the clay is not on the table, so.
All right, before you get your book signed by this amazing, talented, gifted writer, I do want to plug, there's a party to celebrate Alissa Lee tonight. So right around the corner at the Temple Bar, good drinks, light bites, and I understand there's cake. We're gonna have cake. Wow, we're gonna have cake tonight. Yes. So one block down to the right. It's on 9th, or Irving. It's on Irving, yes. The Temple Bar.
And can I say one more thing before I
Sure.
wrap up? I just wanted to acknowledge Michael Lambert because I'm not sure all of you know, as the city librarian kind of understates what you do.
Oh,
I think the way I think about you is one of the most important CEOs and public servants in San Francisco. I think people don't know that he manages a staff of over 1,000. He manages 28 physical locations, including our giant main library. And the range of, obviously the lending program is enormous, but they do everything from citizenship, paperwork, to computer literacy, to language, to, you name it. There's like a sewing club, right? And there's a DJ class that I want to go to.
Yes.
But it is, and they do it all for free. So I think in a time when services are being really cut back, our public libraries are such essential safe spaces for us. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's because all of you agreed to tax yourselves just for libraries. We have the best public library in America right here, hands down.
Yeah.